Welcome everyone. This is our weekly live Q&A. Feel free to ask your questions in the chat. If you're watching on the replay, you can still ask your questions. I'll get to them in the following week's live Q&A. What I wanted to talk about this week is recovering what I call winning on the weekends. And what I mean by this is, for most people, what I've seen is they do a really good job Monday morning to about Friday afternoonish. After that, from about Friday evening to Sunday, that's typically where people start messing up when it comes to their nutrition, even when they're on a plan. So I want to kind of go over a couple different kind of ideas, tactics, thoughts for getting you to be better set up for having success on the weekends, rather than working really, really hard during the week and then everything we do on the weekend puts us back in basically maintenance, if not backtrack mode. So we're just never really getting to where we want to be, and sometimes we're regressing rather than moving forward or standing still, which is not ideal if you are trying to put a lot of effort into seeing progress. So few ideas here. We'll go through them, kind of explain it out. If you have questions as we go through, feel free to throw them in the comments and I'll answer them as they come up. Just in case there's some lag, if you ask a comment that's pertinent to a topic, throw the topic in there so I know exactly what you're referring to. All right, so the biggest and obvious one for winning on the weekends is continuing with your plan. You're eating, balanced breakfast, balanced lunch, balanced dinner. You're doing your protein first, vegetable, and then you're looking at your carbohydrate if needed, and then possibly a fat for each meal. You're in line, you're on track with everything. It works during the week. Why not let it work during the weekends? The challenge with that is weekends are typically when we interact the most with people who may or may not be trying to do the same thing as us. So meals are a little less controllable for us. We're eating out more, or we're inviting people in, and it's kind of a potluck type deal. And it can be a challenge. We're not in our regimented environment, so there's more access to food, because if you're going to work and you're doing a diligent job on meal prepping and packing, the only thing you really got there ready is what you meal prepped. So temptation's not an issue. But when you're at home, you've got the whole kitchen and pantry to kind of lead you astray if you let it, so to speak. So continue with the plan. While it may be the simplest, it may also be the hardest one to follow through with. Keep that in mind. Going to kind of next stages of things that we can do that allow a little more fun. Big one, most people on the weekend, they know there's going to be one, maybe two meals that are kind of out of their control. Whether maybe you're doing breakfast or brunch with the family or friends, and or you're doing some sort of thing in the evening. Maybe it's happy hour, maybe it's just dinner, maybe you're going on a date, whatever the case may be. The other meal or snack that you're not doing everything is when we want to make sure that we're still locked in on our thing and not just flying by the seat of our pants for every single choice of meal that we have. That's what gets us in trouble, and that's where it becomes easy to overeat in very large amounts at that point, if every single meal every day is completely off the rails with it. So what I mean by this is, the meals that you're not going out for. So you're still having it at home. It's not an event. It's not an occasion. It's just your lunch, or it's just your breakfast. Prioritizing your high protein, high fiber, low calorie, That way we're getting all the protein we need, we're getting some extra fiber for filler, so we're not going to be starving too soon afterwards. And we're keeping the calories controlled, so there is room to play around with that more social meal. So we have a little more room if you wanted to have a higher calorie drink, or just larger portions of other sides, or maybe it's a higher, more fat-based dish or a dessert. Giving yourself that room by locking in the other meals of the day leading up to that really help kind of balance and set you up for better success. Because if you're tracking well during the week, you know what your calorie ranges are. You just have to provide yourself enough wiggle room to be able to stay successful, but have some fun while you're there too. What gets us in trouble is when we don't pay attention to the meals leading up to that. And it's like, well, I've only got the 500 calories left that I usually would have, but I'm going to eat way more than that right now. And that's what gets us in trouble there. Other thought is moving more. If you know for sure that you're going to be doing some things where you're going to be consuming a lot more, move more in anticipation so we can expend some extra calories to give us, again, that budget wiggle room, whether it be doing a bunch of, maybe it's like a few extra hours of chores, maybe it's just simply upping what, if your typical step goal is 6,000 or 8,000, maybe you're bumping it up into additional 2,000 past that, just to give yourself some more expenditure for the day. Or if you've been in the habit of kind of not doing anything, adding in some movement, something ideally either functional or fun. So what I mean by that is, if functional means it's stuff that helps you get stuff done for the household, whether it's doing some chores, vacuuming, other cleaning, dishes, laundry, all of the things that take some effort, take some movement that maybe you've been putting off, or just trying to fit it in at other points. Other aspects is just, if you're trying to be social with friends or family, maybe find a physical activity rather than a consumption activity to do together. So, and maybe instead of meeting for brunch, you go for a hike, maybe then you have brunch if you still want to do it. The idea is just putting more movement into your weekend. It's not necessarily a workout, but just something that can get you moving. Again, either functional, meaning that it's helping make your day-to-day, week-to-week stuff easier, or fun, where you still get to get something enjoyable that you like to do, or it's something that maybe you don't completely enjoy it, but whoever you're doing it with, you can have fun with. And sometimes that makes all the difference with it, so it doesn't really feel like a workout, because you have someone to kind of have that companionship, have fun, connect with a friend that you don't always connect with, in a way that's more beneficial to both of you, rather than just having another large meal. That's one thought there. Last tactic and idea that I have here is, if you have a pretty successful week, a thought that you can look at if you're not having trouble during the week is pulling back a little bit of your daily intake during the week, to kind of keep, because weight loss is primarily in and out. Yes, there's more other elements to it depending upon physiology, health conditions, and other things of that nature, but thermodynamic wise, ultimately calories in, calories out dictates a lot of that success. That is over any period of time though, so it doesn't have to be, if you're not calories in, calories out in a 24-hour time period, the whole week is ruined. It's over any period of time. So maybe we have bigger deficits during the week, and we eat closer to maintenance on the weekends, and we still have an overall deficit because we gave ourselves more room with our intake leading into the weekend. So basically it's a week-long tactic approach to the lock-in one or two of your meals when you know that you're going to have a bigger, crazier one later that day. Similar tactic, we're just doing it earlier on in the week leading into the weekend. So maybe if you're going on a trip, other things like that, you don't want to completely derail yourself in one weekend. Backloading some of your intake so you have more space there, doing some additional activity to kind of build up into that reserve. That's another element. It can be a little harder because if you're already, again, if you're already kind of, you can do your daily stuff during the week, but it's kind of a struggle to stay within those calorie ranges. That's when it gets to be more difficult. So it's not a strategy that works for everyone, but it is a potential possibility if you're feeling pretty good and confident with what your intake is during the week. Simple changes that can kind of give you some more room, taking your carbohydrate with a meal and substituting that for a low calorie, high fiber vegetable to drop the total caloric intake but still give you the same volume of food, can help give you a little more calories to play around with. And you can use that idea even on just your day-to-days if you're struggling to keep your calories in check along with your hunger. High fiber, low calorie vegetables is always a good go-to to help mitigate that hunger and control response for our appetites. So just a few ideas. If there are other questions, follow-up that you want me to go over in the future, throw them in the comments. Hopefully this helps you guys continue winning on the weekend so you can keep seeing progress and enjoying. And remember, the biggest factor is there's always going to be days where we get a little crazy. It happens, it's part of life. What matters is if you stay consistent with prioritizing your protein, getting the vegetable with each meal, it's going to be fairly difficult to completely misalign or derail your progress. If you move every day, one form or another, fun or functional, protein, vegetable, then you can look at some of your other foods at meals. That 80 to 90% of the success of getting there. Other elements that are just the variables within your training program, and that's what we help with. So don't beat yourself up about weekends and events. Just work on the strategies, work on the plans. If you still find yourself struggling, that's what we're here for. Please reach out. Hope everything was helpful. Everyone enjoy your week, and remember to stay consistent in your persistent pursuit of health.